If you're listening to this or watching this when I release it, then next week is Thanksgiving week, which means that leaders, hopefully, are thinking about gratitude. And mostly they're thinking about it in the way we've all been trained to think about it, which is like, should I write a thank you note? Should I buy my team a little gift? What could I do that would communicate my gratitude? And listen, there's nothing wrong with those things. I mean, I will always take a little gift, but I want to talk today about something deeper, something that leaders often miss. Because here's what I really believe. Gratitude is not an event. It is not a task. Gratitude is a leadership trait. And on a regular basis, your people want three things. They want to be seen, they want to feel valued, and they want to feel like the work that they're doing matters to someone who actually notices. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Gratitude that is transformational, not transactional, and gratitude that builds culture and just doesn't add something to your to-do list. I want to help you practice the kind of gratitude that changes the way your people feel about their work or their workplace, the way they feel about you, and the way they feel about themselves. How does that sound? Okay, good? Let's get into it. So I had a boss once who nitpicked my every move. She was so critical, and I honestly felt like she spent all of her time just trying to catch me in a mistake. It was rare. I mean, I don't think I ever heard a word of affirmation from her, never a good job or anything that made me think that she saw any good in me. So you can imagine how how gross it was when she would get up in a staff meeting or a holiday party and give this beautiful speech about how much she valued us, how great we were, how she couldn't do it without us. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't buying it, and neither was anybody else. What did we do? We tolerated it, right? We enjoyed the free snacks and we got through those events. And even though most leaders are not this disingenuous with their praise, gratitude can still fall flat in the workplace. And there are many reasons that happens. So the first reason is that it's often just too generic, right? Saying thank you for all that you do doesn't speak directly to the individual or anything they've actually done. So I have a whole nother episode that I'll link in the show notes that goes deeper into this, but here's a simple, fun summary version. If you could say it to a dog, like my dog's name is Maisie. If I could say, good job, good girl, Maisie, right? Good job. Then you should say it to your people. You could be wearing a blindfold for an entire year and not see a single thing each person did. And still at the end of that year, knowing in your head what they did, say, thank you for all that you do. But it falls flat because you didn't see anything. And they know that and they feel it. People feel appreciated when they understand what specifically you thought was good and when you acknowledge the unique value that they add. Another reason gratitude falls flat is because it tends to be seasonal, right? If gratitude only shows up at Thanksgiving or at the end of the year, your people know exactly what's happening. You're essentially doing the leadership equivalent of buying flowers on Valentine's Day. But how does it feel? Have you ever experienced this? I hope you haven't, but how does it feel getting flowers on Valentine's Day when the person sending them is doing it because they feel like they have to or they know that they should, right? It's offensive. It's almost the reverse effect of what it should be. Gestures like flowers on Valentine's Day or on your birthday, they only matter, they only feel good if they are connected to something deeper, something more real. And seasonal gratitude says, this is something I'm remembering to do because the calendar told me to. The third reason gratitude tends to fall flat is because it can easily become selective. So last week I did an episode on that difficult employee that you have. So go ahead, you can say their name out loud. We all know you at least have one. Well, you are human, right? And even though it would be an amazing, perfect world if we all had the ability to have the equal amount of affection for everyone, even that person, regardless of how they acted, even if we could, we don't, right? It's hard. And so we find it easier to appreciate the high performers, right? The people that we're relationally more drawn to, the people who don't cause all the team conflict or drama. And it's harder to see or acknowledge those quiet backbones of the team, right? The one who keeps things running behind the scenes or the person on the improvement plan. And this is rarely intentional, right? It's almost never malicious. It's just human. You are just human. But it creates a culture where gratitude just feels like favoritism. And the final reason it falls flat is because it can be disconnected from the culture that you say you want And that's just really confusing. So here's what I mean. Whether you have formalized or verbalized your values as a team or an organization or not, they exist. They show organically in the way you do business or the way you treat your team. So if you and your team value collaboration, it's going to show up in how you do your work, right? You have an unspoken way of working, whether you know it or not. And that's just simply called your culture, the way you do your work and the way you feel about it. It's the culture. So when leaders get motivated to show gratitude, it often doesn't mesh with your existing culture. So at my house, for example, we eat dinner rather casually. I have three little kids, and the goal is really get the food on the table, eat the food, and then clean up the disaster zone we've created, right? That's just the norm. That's the culture of how we do dinner. So imagine if I wanted to show them how much I appreciate those little stinkers, how much I love them, how thankful I am for them. So I decided to put out these fancy table settings and light candles. That would be so weird. They would be so confused. It wouldn't feel like us. So instead, a better idea would be to run dinner how we always do it. But instead of giving them normal dinner food, I'd give them cake on their kids' plates as we always do, because I'm a cool mom, but also because it would be such an amazing treat, but it would still feel like us. Does that make sense? Gratitude that doesn't reinforce your values or reflect your culture, it's just confusing. It just feels like noise. It feels like extra. So if your culture is about connection, like if your team really values that, then your gratitude needs to connect. If your culture is about clarity, if that's what you value, then your gratitude needs to be really specific. And this is why traditional gratitude advice or like a 5 gift ideas to show you're thankful just doesn't really work. So what should you do? What should you do this week with Thanksgiving upon us? Well, let me encourage you that it isn't that hard, okay? It isn't that time consuming, especially if you agree with my definition of gratitude. So let me tell you what it is. My definition of gratitude is this: seeing people clearly. That's it, okay? People don't need you to celebrate them. A lot of people actually are really uncomfortable with that. They need you to see them. So, seeing someone clearly means noticing their strength, even when it's quiet, noticing their growth, even when it's slow, noticing their contributions, even when they're not flashy. This is why gratitude is a discipline, right? Like I said at the top, it's a leadership trait. It requires you to slow down, to pay attention long enough to observe what's actually happening around you. And when you do that, when you slow down, when you pay attention and observe, gratitude quickly becomes about connection and not just some empty words that you're saying. It stops feeling like a show. It's just communication, really at its simplest. It's this simple. It's like, I want you to know who you are and how you matter here. And that feels really good to the person receiving it. And these words, these are the words that will stay with people. Quick praise on a card on Thanksgiving, which again, like in and of itself is not wrong or bad, but this quick praise on a Thanksgiving card, it doesn't stick, right? And the reason why is because we are wired to want to know that our efforts make a difference. We want to know that we have impact. So I have a friend, a former employee, who Marco Polo'd me this week. I love the Marco Polo app to communicate with my friends who live far away. So she Marco Polo'd me. Also, is it Marco Polo'd, Santa Marco, Santa Polo? What do you think? You could drop that in the comments if you want, but I'm always curious what people say. She Marco Polo'd me. Moving on, we spent way too much time on that. Telling me about a speaker that she heard at this event. And she kept on saying, "Oh, you would have loved it, Kara. Everything he said was exactly what you say. He was all about the people and not just about the tasks." And I mean, she was just sharing this with me casually, but it felt so good to hear. She was speaking to me about my impact. She was seeing it represented somewhere else. And then she shared it with me. And that made me feel valued and appreciated. And she hasn't worked for me in almost 5 years. Those words stick. We are wired to want to know that our efforts make a difference. And you know, friend, this seeing people clearly and speaking it to someone, highlighting their impact, it's not an extra task in your job description. It is your job. And we often forget that though, right? I mean, we have a lot on our plate, but a huge part of your job is to pay attention to your people, notice what they're doing, and speak it to them. So take ownership in that. Take accountability in building this culture. In my 10 years of executive leadership experience, I could list so many ways that I failed, so many tasks that went undone, that went in a way that I didn't want them to. My team could tell you all my shortcomings. And honestly, I could crawl under a rock thinking about some things that I said, some ways that I thought, some ways that I reacted. And there's a lot there. But I think I can say that those things wouldn't be the things my team would say about me if asked about their time with me. They would say something about the culture. They would say something about the connections, about the relationships. And that's not because I was by any means a perfect leader. And they know that firsthand. But it's because I do and have always viewed leadership as being a responsibility to see and know, care for, and champion others. And I really believe this is what you think too. If you're here listening to this podcast, if you're still listening, then you must feel this way too. Leadership is the stewardship of other people and their gifts and talents. So, friend, let me ask you, what does being a leader mean to you? What's the point? And like I said, you're here listening, so I do feel like you must have a heart for your people. But sometimes we can get distracted. Sometimes we can see our leadership as about our status on the corporate ladder or building an empire that's really all about us, or finding people you just want to do the tasks you don't want to do. Maybe you've been a solo entrepreneur and now you have a team and you're like, I want to keep being the boss here. This business is my baby, but I need these people to just do the tasks that I can't do or don't want to do. So what does being a leader mean to you? What's the point? What is it? It's worth thinking about, especially knowing that you are responsible for leading a culture. This is your job. So if you don't see this rightly, you will feel like slowing down to notice your people and speak to them about it is an extra task outside of your daily job role. So right now you might be thinking, okay, here's how gratitude falls flat. Here's what gratitude is. Here's why gratitude is a leadership trait and why it's my responsibility as a leader to care for the people, to see them, to acknowledge what they're doing. But you said I shouldn't write a card or give a speech at a holiday party, right? So like, what do I do? How does this translate? Okay. Well, I have a way that you can express gratitude that feels right and lands well and matches your current culture. And my answer, what I'm going to tell you, is going to make you laugh. If you've listened or followed my podcast for any length of time, you're going to be like, of course that's what Kara would say. So here it is. Here it is. Give clear feedback this week. I know it's not sexy, not even a little bit. And you know how much I talk about and push my clear feedback framework. And I want you to see that gratitude is just another form of clear, connected conversation. And if you took the time this week leading up to Thanksgiving to meet with your people, to write this kind of feedback in an email or in a card, it would be the best gift that you could give to your team. So what is it? CLEAR is an acronym. I'm going to walk through the framework quickly, but you can also just download the template. I have it all ready for you to go. It's at heycaralist.com/feedback. And I'll also put the link in the show notes. And that way, if you download this template, you don't have to take notes here. You can just listen. It's all right there for you to fill in with each of your people. So you start the conversation with the C in CLEAR, which stands for context. So start with when it happened. Yesterday during the staff meeting. Last week when we were preparing the presentation, on Monday when the schedule fell apart, this past quarter as you began your new role. Say specifically where and when you observed the behavior that you want to recognize. So this kind of context signals to your people, I saw it. I've noticed. You have not been overlooked. So next is the L, which stands for lay out the behavior. Name exactly what the person did, not the vibe, not the general idea, the specific behavior. For example, you stayed calm while everyone else was stressed. You took initiative to solve the issue before it snowballed. You walked the new intern through the process with so much patience. Or you didn't quit when that conflict got really hard. Then the best part comes, E, which stands for effect. So you explain why it mattered. You laid out the context, where and when it happened. You laid out the behavior, what exactly you saw, the exact behavior, and now you explain why it mattered. And this is the part that makes this truly transformational and not just transactional. It turns just a compliment into real impact. So you could say something like, this helped the team refocus instead of panicking. Or because of you, we avoided a delayed deadline. Or that small moment completely changed how welcomed she felt. Or the way you showed resilience in that encouraged me to be more resilient too. So, this is the heartbeat of gratitude. This is where it is at. And having heard that, do you see how terrible good job or I really appreciate you just left to themselves like that feels when you put it into this framework? Now, I love the next part. And if you are doing this in person, like not in an email or in a card, it gets real magical right here. So now you turn this conversation, which has been kind of a monologue, into a dialogue, into a conversation. And you do this by the A in our acronym, which in my normal template stands for ask a question. But when we're using it for gratitude, it could also be an opportunity to give an affirmation. Still starts with A. So it could sound like this: You have no idea how much your steadiness helps this team. Or I recognize how critical you are to this team's success. Or you could use the A to ask a question, something like, how are you feeling about how that went? Or what recommendations do you have for how we could improve in that area? So, this part of the feedback template is the first time where you're giving an opinion or you're inviting a response. So, everything up to this point has just been a fact, right? At this time, I noticed this thing and it had this impact, right? So, the A, ask a question, give an affirmation, is the now tell me more or let me tell you about how much I value you. And I will say, in a gratitude context here, the question part of this is a little harder than the affirmation. So it's okay to just give an affirmation, but I also think there's so much value in allowing them to speak to it, to share what it was like when they did that thing, or to be invited to give opinions or ideas on how the team can improve. Soliciting their thoughts and advice is just another way to communicate without saying it. I value you. So I just recommend to do what feels most natural. Like, don't ask a question if it just doesn't feel right, if it's not the right time, or you don't have the right question, or that person just maybe isn't someone who's going to want to talk about it more. But if you can fit that in a way that works well for you, I totally recommend it. So the R stands for resolve, which really means what's next. So it concludes this conversation for now, but also gives some clarity on a direction, on a next step. So it could sound like, you really make our team so much better, and I hope that you know how much I want your feedback and opinions moving forward. Or it could sound like, I'm so grateful that I get to work with you, and I'm really look forward to getting to connect more with you as we keep working together. Or I wanted you to know that I see how much you have worked to grow, and I look forward to our next one on one to keep on that trajectory. So it rounds it out for now, right? But also doesn't make it feel like this one and done that you check off your to do list. So use the clear feedback method. Use it all the time. And even though gratitude should be a year round discipline, a leadership trait, I do think that Thanksgiving offers you a moment, right? A pause to practice something meaningful. And if you're thinking, but my team members haven't done anything that necessarily stands out or is out of the norm, like we kind of do the same things all the time, I'm just going to give you 3 ideas, 3 ways to think about approaching this clear feedback method this week that are not cliche, they don't feel obligatory, and they're not performative on your part. So the first is to acknowledge something that you normally overlook. So something consistent that happens that depends on them. Every team has a few of these like invisible load carriers, right? They keep the wheels turning. They don't make much noise. They don't draw attention to themselves. And often they go completely unnoticed. Often we take these people for granted. So use the clear feedback method to tell them what you see, even if they think it's unseen. Here's another one. I love this one. Tell someone the internal shift you experienced because of them. This is a leadership move that almost no one makes, okay? So has a team member done something where the effect part in the clear feedback was a personal impact? How has their work reminded you of the values and mission? How has the way they have showed up inspired you to do the same? How has their growth or their leadership or their helpful criticism made you a better leader? And I get it, this is the most vulnerable one. But because of that, it's the most powerful form of gratitude. And finally, just one more idea for this clear feedback is to use growth and efforts, not just wins, right? The wins are what most leaders measure. It's what we see. the easiest, but they are often these wins. They're often few and far between. The efforts, the small, the little steps, the growth, it's what people crave the acknowledgement for. So look for growth in confidence, growth in communication, in their boundaries setting. Maybe they've grown in taking initiative or collaboration. And you could say something like, imagine if that was you. Imagine if you had taken these small steps to grow in confidence or initiative, and your leader says, I've seen you grow in this thing. Maybe I've seen you grow in how you handle conflict this year, and it's changing the whole team. Or the courage you've built in speaking up is one of the biggest transformations I've ever seen. People rarely get thanked for the internal work. And we all know that the internal work is often the hardest work that we have to do. Okay, friend, let me wrap up with this. Gratitude is not a leadership accessory, right? It's not something you pull out when the calendar says to. Gratitude is one of the most powerful connectors you have as a leader. It is a way of seeing, of noticing, of honoring the people who give their energy, their creativity, their patience, their skill, their emotional bandwidth to the mission that you are leading. And when you treat gratitude like a discipline instead of a holiday, it changes the entire culture. Thanksgiving becomes not the one moment of gratitude, but the reminder of the kind of leader you really want to be all year long, right? A leader who sees, who connects, who honors the humans in front of them, who builds culture through everyday moments. And this is the work of leadership, right? This is the work of building a high performing and happy team. So go and do it. Use this week or the last few weeks of this year to go and do it. Grab the template, heycarolist.com/feedback or in the show notes so that you have a plug and play framework to use. And friend, if you want to build a workplace where gratitude and feedback are not seasonal, but a true part of your culture, but that feels overwhelming, like that feels like way too big of a task, I get it. I really do. I've been there exactly in the seat you sit in. And that's why I do this. I want to share with you what I wish someone would have shared with me 10 years ago. I want to support you in the ways I wish someone had supported me. So as this year is coming to a close, maybe you're ready to finally call yourself to something better as a leader, to grow in ways maybe you didn't even know you had to grow, or to get practical about building the culture that your team is desperately craving. If that's you, I would love to help. And it's not too late. Maybe this season, this next year is the year you will experience immense growth and success in your leadership. So I'm going to drop my email in the show notes. And if you're interested in learning more about how we could work together, what that would look like, just shoot me an email and we'll go back and forth and see if we're a good match for a complimentary coaching call. And friend, in the spirit of this episode, let me say this to you from the bottom of my heart. I'm grateful for the work that you are doing. I'm grateful for the way you are showing up. And I'm grateful that you care enough about your team to even be listening to this podcast, to want to keep growing. So happy Thanksgiving. I'm here cheering you on, and I'll talk to you next time on the Better Conversations podcast. Bye, friend.